Okay guys, so we're back at the shop. We're going to start off with the big Bimini top, and in my scurry with that wind, what I didn't do was write down on this piece the inside and the outside. But luckily what we did was we wrote our 64 inches and 50 inches on there, so I know that this is the inside. So, and that makes a big difference with this when you're patterning a Bimini top, because we're always going to put the pattern on the outside of the fabric, so you want the outside up. But nonetheless, what we're going to do is I'm going to start off by drawing the actual center line onto the pattern plastic. When you get a little bit more experience, you don't necessarily need to do this, but it makes life a lot easier, because when we stitch our material together, we're going to have a center line where the seam is. So I like to just duplicate that onto the pattern. And then that does one other thing for us too. So once you've got the center line, okay, this is our main bow that we scribed in. And remember that I only put one cutoff mark. So from that center line that you just drew in, you figure out where that is, and that is 60½ inches. And our material is only 60 inches wide. So what we need to do is change this to 60 inches. So remember too, that is this cutoff mark is preference as far as how far you want the canvas to come around the sides. So remembering that that's 60, I'm going to come over here to this side, and we have our two marks that we had on the boat, and those are about 58. So we've got enough material that we don't need to have 3 pieces. We can do this with one seam and have 2 pieces on there. So on this side, you still got me here? Let's draw this out and go 60 inches there. Okay. Now we can turn the whole pattern. And then draw a straight line from the aft to the front. And because we're going to duplicate this onto the fabric, let's go ahead and cut that too. So we'll do same thing on this side. Okay, Now, okay, so this is the, I just turned it again, so that this is the main aft bow, and I'm going to cut this off right on the money as well. We're going to put some seam allowance in this for this pocket, but we don't need to put the seam allowance onto the pattern. All right, so let's go to the aft side here. Okay, so we didn't have a real good angle on the boat, but you can now see that this is the shape of the radar arch. And what we want to have is a 2.5-inch valance that's going to get the kettlewelt sewn right to it, that's going to actually slide into that. But the 2.5-inch valance is going to be a zipper tail. So the Bimini top is actually going to go underneath the zipper tail and zip to it right there. And then we'll extend the awning rail out, which we wrote it down on here, 50 inches. So we need to have an extra 50 inches on there for the side curtains. But when we get to the side curtains, well, when we get to the making of the tail, we're going to make a transition right at these two corners. We're going to have the Bimini top come underneath the zipper tail, but then we're going to have the side curtain go on top of the zipper tail so it overlays it, and that's going to keep the gaps from it leaking. So, all right, so I just wanted to introduce you guys. This is Nick Reno from Chicago. He came down, he happened to be just working in DC area, so he came down to visit me today, and he's going to get a little bit of some lessons on doing some patterning, and maybe we'll get into making some canvas today also. But you actually have a full-time job, right?
Yes.
And now he's just going to do the canvas part-time. He's one of my first members on the site, so I'm excited for him to be here. He's done some jobs, and what we do is we text pictures back and forth a lot and go through it. And actually, he's been making some money, right?
Yeah, we're doing really well.
So that's good. I just want to introduce you guys and let you see him and see that we're here and that this is still a live, real site every day. So actually, you just missed quite a bit of what we just did. This is the radar arch on the Sea Ray. So this part comes in and then the aft goes that way. What I did was I put a mark on the awning rail on both ends where I want this top to stop, and then we guesstimated where we want the canvas to come around on the very aft side. And when I put my mark on there, I discovered when I got into the shop that it was about 61 inches, 60.5 inches or so, and our fabric is only 60 inches wide. So I adjusted it and I made it exactly 60 inches so that we can just use one seam down the center instead of sewing on another piece for 1 inch of material. Right. And then I've gotten written on here, that's a zipper mark there for one of the vertical zippers that are going to go on the beam. And then we also wrote on there that we've got 64 inches on the very back of the boat. We want a 64-inch piece in there. And then there'll be, so the back will be 3 pieces on there. And I'm just now getting into discussing what we're going to do for the zipper tail. So we want the canvas, there's going to be a 2.5-inch flap with a zipper on it so that the Bimini top will come underneath that, and then the water will run to the outside so it doesn't run inside the boat. Okay. And then from this edge down, if you followed the radar arch all the way down, it was an additional...
Is it a forward arch or?
You know what?
Bimini top, right?
Yeah. No, it's an aft angle arch.
Okay.
Doesn't it, Bill? Does that arch lean back or forward? Shit, I don't know. I don't think it makes it. Maybe it does go forward. I don't know. Good question.
It goes forward because that's where we had the channel.
Okay, you're right. Yep. So it's a Sea Ray. You're right. So it's a forward-facing arch. So because if you're looking forward, if the boat's like this, and you have the tail coming up this way and the canvas coming in, all the water will run in there and run right into the boat. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a transition right there at that corner so that all the water on the top will run off, and then have the side curtain will overlap the outside of the rail.
Okay.
So that the water sheds to the outside. And then on the front part of the arch, where it's the opposite direction, we'll do that different. We'll actually make that tail go the entire length so all the water sheds to the outside. So that's where we're at. Okay, so we just had a little bit of a camera malfunction there, so I'm going to go through this, and you're not going to be able to watch me do it, so I'll just explain it. This being the arch, and we've got our black scribe line through there, and we're going to make our 2.5-inch valance that's going to overhang and then have our Bimini top come underneath there. What we want to do is we want to scribe in with a different colored Sharpie so that you can identify it 1 inch from this black Ketterwelt line. And all I did was take my clear ruler and I just drew in 1 inch that goes all the way around there. So with the zipper being 1.5 inches, you know that zipper edge is going to hit right at the Ketterwelt line, and then we're going to have 1.5 inches that come in with the zipper. Half of that is 3/4 of an inch. So we need to eliminate technically 3/4 of an inch of material in order to have this thing still fit right. I always exaggerate it by about 1/4 of an inch. I'll take 1 inch off of here because you also have the binding that's going to go on that leading edge, and then we can fudge that zipper just a little bit. Not to mention that on a Bimini that's this big, 1/4 inch isn't going to make that big of a deal. But it does make a big deal if you don't take the 1 inch out. So what you cannot do is you cannot scribe your zipper tail and your Bimini top on the same radius, because those radiuses change as the curves come through there. So that's all that I've done. The pattern's ready. So the next thing that we're going to do, we did was I pulled this thing out lengthwise and then I measured it, and I want to make sure, because we're going to have 5 inches of pocket on the main bow side, and then we're also going to have the 2.5-inch zipper tail on that end. We want that much, or we want to have enough to make the zipper tail and the Bimini top off of this end. So I need at least 1 foot down there, and we need at least 6 inches down here. So by measuring that, that reads about 9'6". Very critical that you have enough material. You'll be aggravated with yourself if you're starting to put pieces together to do this scribing. So that's it with working the patterns. All right, I'm going to pull this out, and then let's get some rough cloths sewn together, and then we'll start scribing, okay?